Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh
The
my
floor
gosh,
is
thank
yours.
you for the the symposium and the experiment and the work that we are all doing in the world, and specifically for joining us this evening. This is awesome. Thank you for the invitation. All right. Is everybody seeing my no, because I haven't actually pushed share screen. That's
We see you.
helpful.
We don't see. Did Anca get caught up on the internet? Did the gremlins get her?
Let me check.
If you know what, you don't have to. If she arrives, I'll put her right in.
No worries. We are both, part-time workers, full-time moms. So it could have been a mom moment. I'm going to share this and go into slide screen. Can everybody see my desktop or the slides? Is everybody excellent? Thank you. Well, as mentioned, my name is Cary Lopez. I'm one of the co-founder and co-CEO of DesignConvo LLC. And we believe that we need to design conversations like we design everything else in our world, with intention and have frameworks and not have to leave things up to chance in all instances. Serendipity is amazing and can be fun and useful. And sometimes it helps to have process and structure. One of the things that we've come across is that, we're not really taught how to do this well, especially in a group setting of any kind, right? And so really bringing in structure and process and design to conversations is kind of what we're all about. So we're not just going to sit here and blather at you for the next 45 minutes about this case study. We're actually wanting to do a little bit of an experiment ourselves. So we're going to pop you all into a breakout group to get to know each other. It's going to be real quick, about 5 minutes total. You get about 1 minute per person to do an intro and just get to know each other in very brief, quick introduction. So I think we're going to open a breakout group. You get 5 minutes and we'll come back and run the next part of the experiment. All right. Everyone's back. And at this point, maybe you've been encountering everyone or each other multiple times throughout the day. So maybe that wasn't quite as awkward as it could have been, but we're going to do the second part of the experiment now. And this time, we're going to explore this concept of having a little bit more structure in the engagement, the exercise that we're doing with one another. So this time, you're also going to have a little bit more time with each other. So not in the same breakout groups. We'll be shuffling the breakout groups a little bit just to ruffle the feathers of any, psychological safety that was forming, since we're going to kind of experiment and see what it feels like to have zero structure versus maybe a little bit more structure and what that lived experience is like. So in the chat, we're going to drop a link to kind of the conversation guide that you'll be using for this second part of the discussion. I'm just going to grab that real quick. Oh, I think someone might be beating me to it. Thank you, Elise. The producer with the mostest. It doesn't quite roll the way I was hoping, but you get what I'm saying. And we're going to open new breakout groups this time with some structure and following this guide. And there's an outcome that we're hoping for at the end of this one. So take a few moments, read through the conversation guide, and you'll have a little bit more time in your breakout groups this time. So we'll see you back here, and then we'll have some discussion about what that felt like and the difference between the two experiences. As we're all coming back, for those of you who were designated as the team name sharer, yeah, we'll go with that title. Please drop your team names into the chat and let's see what kind of team names you came up with. And for those, Jody and the stuff, I love it. And for those of you who were not the designated team name sharer, I would love to know what some key takeaways you had in the first breakout group, your first round of introductions. Do you recall names, the folks, something interesting about the folks who are introducing themselves, just key takeaways about the first set of breakout groups when you were first meeting each other, very briefly. And feel free to come off mute if you want to share out loud, or use the chat if you would like to.
My
Didn't
group
make it to the second page.
My group disregarded the instructions. We're talking about the first group, right?
Yes.
We just talked about where we were and what the weather was like and had a very congenial and supportive conversation.
Nothing wrong with that. Wonderful. How else did everybody do on the first time? What were some key takeaways? Remembering names, occupations, locations. And apparently there was a design flaw in my conversation guide because there was a second page. No worries. You just kind of roll with the punches, right? The ashes. Oh, we'll have to figure out about that one. I see there's a hand raised, and please share how I pronounce your name. I don't want to mispronounce your name.
My name is Amira.
Amira.
That was it's great to see different people from different parts of the world, I can say. The two intro experiences very good. Like, I really like to know people. That for me as a person, in terms of the experience, talking about your superpower was a different.
Yeah, a little bit of a different way to think about yourself.
Yeah, I'm happy I wasn't the first person.
Okay. Since we're talking about kind of the differences between the two experiences, what were some other key takeaways folks have? How did it feel different between just the dropping into a group, no instructions really, versus having more of a structure in an exercise? I see some similarities in what we wanted to take away in the chat. Liking the instruction, kind of liking some of the structure.
I think for our group, I think the structure provided a stronger launching pad, but we still spent a lot of time in congenial discussion, but we had that from a different level, if you will. I think we got more out of it as a result.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll probably come back and discuss maybe a little bit more about this as we go, but we wanted to use this as a framework as we dive into the case study, because it's kind of an example of, the power of structure. And in our research, one of the things we've found that's interesting is that structure actually helps to scaffold vulnerability. It rapidly builds psychological safety because there's something that you can kind of lean into. You can just follow something rather than having the burden put on you of not only doing the thing, but also planning the thing, right? And so structure actually allows participants to be content experts, but it also empowers facilitators to be those process experts and kind of rest in the power of a good design, right? And that's what we found in our case study. And I'm going to let Anca give you a little bit more of a background about what this was, who the organization was, and some of what we did.
Hi, everyone. So about 6 months ago, we were approached by the Wellbeing Collaborative. And the Wellbeing Collaborative is an association of associations of the major healthcare providers in the entire state of Arizona. So Blue Cross Blue Shield, Access, Banner, Mayo Clinic, Phoenix Children. If you're thinking big organizations, those are it. And it's these top leaders that are coming together to focus on an emergency within the industry, and that is the well-being of healthcare providers. And they came to us with kind of two things. One, they needed some strategic planning and engaging the entire network to do so. And two, they wanted to really engage all levels. So not just the senior level, but all different levels, all the way down to students that were going to go into this industry. And so we approached this design challenge as most facilitators do. You set up teams and topics and facilitators and so on. But one of the things we went back to them on is this idea of, well, let's not just engage the students in the sessions. What if we teach the students to facilitate the sessions? And their initial feedback was, what? No, we need experts to do these sessions. We need expert facilitators. And we said, no. The process is the expert in this case. The students are just walking through the process. lean in on us, trust us, it's going to work. We've done it before. And so they did. And so we ended up taking 12 college students for a full day training in our proprietary conversation design method. That's a 5-step method. And they spent the day experiencing it, learning it, and then practicing it. And then we designed this full day digital summit where we brought 100+ leaders in healthcare, different levels, different topics together, facilitated by students. And these topics were not easy. So if we go to the next slide, you can see some of these topics. They're quite abstract. How do we promote joy and purpose in the workplace? How do we help an entire system, an ecosystem, grieve after COVID? How do we promote holistic mind, body, spirit framework? How do we engage leadership authentically? These are kind of big, lofty, abstract topics that the students, following our framework, following the process, resting in the process, took these executive leaders through. It was 2.5 to 3 hours of workshop design work, and the outcomes were absolutely fantastic. So let's show you what that looks like.
Yeah. So this is it's a bunch of bubbles, I know, and it's really hard to understand even what this means. We're going to take you through this step by step to kind of explain what we mean by the design structure. So the first portion of this, the foundation of this, is the ConvoX method, which is our 5-step method that Anca mentioned. And for those, designers, design thinkers, it's a triple diamond. So we diverge, converge 3 times. But it's in a mural board and it's very simple. And so even though we're doing a lot of diverging and converging and coming together and finding similarities and differences and all those wonderful things, it's a very simple process. And so as Anca mentioned, the process itself was the expert. The students simply had to kind of rest in knowing, I've done this 3 times now. I know what to expect. We actually gave them a script too, because some of them just needed that, the comfort of literally being able to hold something as they're walking through the session. But they were able to do this very successfully. And the next element in the next bubble is small group design, right? So even though this was a large group, I think it was over 125 by the time all of the participants joined. The power of these comes from community, right? From being able to bounce ideas off of each other, from the relationships that you build and the perspective taking that happens when you hear how others are experiencing the well-being in the health field after COVID. So small group design was how we did the majority of this. And the students, each student had a group of about 5 people, but we didn't just leave them out there, on their own to sink or swim. We brought in expert mentors. And so the idea was these people were floating around in the design summit. They also, all the students had their phone numbers. So if they had kind of an emergency moment, needed to ping someone, they could do so. They ended up not really needing to do so. And our poor experts were kind of just hanging out in the main room, listening to music and stuff, because they weren't needed. The students were really successful in running these sessions. I think 2 of them actually ended up just joining a session to be part of it and be part of the conversation. And so, overall, the lift in terms of how many people were facilitating was actually quite small from a traditional like paid structure kind of example, because the students really leaned into this and managed it really, really well. And so from an outcomes perspective, as you would expect after a 2.5 to 3 hour design summit, we didn't walk away with a strategic plan, right? It wasn't like bulleted items of exactly what's going to be happening, but they did walk away with a strategy. They walked away with knowing what elements were most important to their community and some really actionable ideas in terms of how to start moving some of those things forward that we're now carrying into actually building an actual plan, right? But you can see here, so the full figures, the ones that are fully colored in, those are the participant feedback, and the student figures, the ones that are kind of holding the book. And the title of the session is, Dave mentioned at the very beginning, was, well, how the heck did we just do that? We kept getting feedback from both the students and the participants, like, these were really abstract, difficult topics to understand. And yet we walked away like, I feel more connected with this community I'm in, like I have bought into wanting to help move this forward, even though it's, not my job, or it's going to be on a volunteer basis. And they're actionable, like things that came out of this are things like changing legislature. And, there's people who raised their hand and said, I know how to do that. I'm, connected with our lawmakers and things. And so it was a really powerful way that one of the things when we said, well, how the heck did we just do that? We walked away saying, well, we knew process was powerful. We knew that having a good structure was powerful, but this really kind of cemented that, I guess, in our mind and kind of blew us away, frankly, with how amazing the students were. And when we say college students, some of these students were sophomores, like undergrad. These weren't, nursing majors or med students. These were students who, when we first sent out the call, were like, so I'm going to be with the chief executive officer of Cigna Health, and you think I can do that? Like, there was some reticence there, and they were very, very pleasantly surprised. How the heck did we just do that? So we are going to open it up to questions. And I know we were maybe a little short on detail in terms of some of the exact structure, but we wanted to give more of an opportunity to really talk about it and to live through what non-structure versus structure kind of feels like. So open it up. Love to hear from y'all. What questions do you have, or what examples do you have of the power of a really good process and structure as we're thinking about the experiment for the symposium? And then maybe we're going to stop the share because then we can just all see each other.
Looks like Michelle's got her hand up.
Yes, please.
I was wondering how you motivated students to participate.
There was very little motivation necessary, honestly. The opportunity for, so the students that we kind of put the call out to is from this group at Arizona State University called the Next Generation Service Corps. And this is a group of students. It's kind of a honors group, so they're highly motivated anyway, right? And these are the change makers. These are the ones who want to change the world. And so when this call came out about how do we help support the well-being of our frontline health workers, COVID, post-COVID, the next COVID, we had very little problem recruiting students. So part of it might be know the audience, find the student group that the message is one that they are deeply interested and invested in.
It was also really interesting that we built into the contract with them, instead of paying expert facilitators, pay for students to be trained and then give them a stipend for their work. And so now all of a sudden you have this really strong connection and pipeline to these students within this network, and allowed them to experience and build education that you supported versus just paying people that do this all the time. You kind of bought one, passed one forward, Tom Shoes model sort of thing.
Tom Shoes model of facilitation. Yeah, we didn't want it to be extractive either, right? Like we weren't just abusing their time. And by the way, you get to learn something kind of thing. But it wasn't a lot of money to us, but it was enough to them. I think it was $200 for the day and all the training. So, and yes, so the mural board, I believe, is in the mural community, isn't it, Anca? Haven't we published it to the mural community? So we can absolutely share that link if you are in mural. We do obviously also train people in the ConvoX method, and ConvoX is a 5-step, very simplified method. We took kind of best practices from Lean Six Sigma design thinking, graphic and visual facilitation, and design thinking, and kind of said, what are the simplest, most impactful steps of these processes that, if kind of put together, would get a group from just talking and swirling about a problem or a concept into being able to define really concrete action. So that's kind of the intention and the purpose of our framework. Any other questions? Oh, yes, thank you.
It's one thing to have a process or a structure or a script that you create because you've done it. It's kind of practicing, it's making the imprint. We're about to embark on this where we're going to take a design by one or two or a few people and then give it to others and hope they take it on as their own. Are there any learnings about how we might best do that and get other people bought in as if it were their own?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, I think one of the things we might need to consider in the experiment is the teaching hospital method works for a reason, right? The see one, do one, teach one kind of model of first understand it cognitively, then experience it, and now take the ownership of it and help someone else do it, right? And so in the experiment itself, it might be worth, as we're rolling it out, thinking about how do we give that kind of experience for folks too? Not just here's the challenge, here's an approach, go do it, but is there some kind of way to first do hey, let's all do it together, and maybe addressing a different challenge question or something, but globally, like let's run one of these together to experience it. And now you take it to your group and you go do it and you own it now, right? I don't know, something, because many of these students have since, we've heard that they've since done this with, one of them was like, I couldn't get my project team to agree on what our outcome would be. So I ran a convo session with them. So I think it happens naturally when you become the teacher of the thing. So that would be one thought I have. And who else has thoughts? Healer?
I did drop the link to the mural template in chat. And then we do also have another link to a Google Doc that we created in case you guys have additional thoughts or questions that you want to submit, but the session time is over and you would like for us to answer or continue the conversation. We can drop that in chat as well, so you guys can add those in there, and we're happy to answer additional questions after our time. Sometimes things pop up only when the thing is over.
Yeah, in the shower the next morning.
Don't type in the shower.
Thank you, Anca.
I think our time is up.